I've had some sweet memories with the Volvo S60 T6 when I first drove it in 2011. The way that thing accelerated, it made its intentions clear. That car loved to play. It was unlike any other Volvo at that point of time, and that is what made that car very special. And now there's a new S60. Is this better than the outgoing car? Does this one like to play as well? Will this be any faster, any more fun to drive? Let's find out. And what a perfect city to start driving in. Los Angeles, home to Hollywood and glamour, and the S60 fits perfectly into that atmosphere. Cut from the same fabric as the S90, the S60 looks gorgeous despite the familiar design bits, more so in this shade of cherry red. Like the XC60, the Thor's hammer detailing in the headlight juts out towards the grille for a slight bit of aggression on the face. The tail looks gorgeous too, with vertically split tail lamps and twin exhaust tips, which by the way are actually functional unlike some of its German rivals. And speaking of its rivals, I think in terms of styling, the S60 looks more sophisticated than the XE, the A4 or the C-Class, but less radical or aggressive than the new 3 Series or the Lexus ES. What you see here is the R design trim that brings with it some black accents, which looks quite good. The inscription trim will flaunt more chrome. Like its elder siblings, the S62 is based on Volvo's SPA platform. Therefore, the distance between the front axle and the dashboard is fixed and similar to the S90. That gives it a long nose. And to visually balance it out, the overall length of the car is longer than the outgoing car. The wheelbase is longer too, and that translates into a roomy rear bench. Quite roomy in fact. I also like the contouring of the backrests. It's a very comfortable space in here. It's not as roomy as something say like the Lexus ES, but compared to its German or its European rivals, there's certainly a lot more headroom and knee room. You also get 4-zone climate control on this particular trim. You have 2 vents in the tunnel console, 1 each on the B pillar. The visibility outside the window is quite good. In fact, all-round visibility is quite excellent. You also get a panoramic sunroof, which is a standard fit, but the size is slightly smaller in favor of structural safety. Speaking of safety, the cabin is secured with all the kind of airbags that you can think of in all the corners, and the S60 also gets orthopedic approved front seats. These are the same seats that you get in the S90, but without the ventilation or the massage functions. Visibility at the front is great too. The dashboard is tilted towards the driver for better ergonomics, and the layout is similar to all the new Volvo cars. The stitched lining for the panels, the optional wood or aluminum inlays, and the Napa leather upholstery elevate the premium feel of this cabin. Ingress and egress can be a little cumbersome given the low seating of this particular car. But once you get in, you are welcomed by the typical top quality finish and fit of the Volvo cabin. You have a similar looking design as some of its other siblings, but the overall feel, the premium feel of the cabin is right there, and it's one of the best in the segment. The infotainment, we have all often complained about it that it's a little laggy, it feels a little slow, so that has been addressed with the 2019 version of this infotainment. The hardware has been upgraded to a more faster processor. The same goes for the instrumentation as well. The processor or the hardware has been upgraded for that as well. The overall menu and the navigation through the menus is a little bit slicker, a little bit faster, and that's a good thing. You get a conventional gear selector when you opt for the T6 models, whereas the T8 gets a stubby digital selector that is done up with glass, much similar to the XC90 T8. The T8 also has a larger tunnel console with lesser storage spaces though, courtesy of the battery pack that sits underneath. Speaking of drivetrains, there are 4 primary options to choose from. Right at the base is the T5, which uses a 4-cylinder 2-liter turbocharged direct injection petrol engine, which puts out about 250 PS of power. Sitting on top of it is the T6, which always puts a smile on my face and is likely to be the first variant that will come to India. Unlike before, where it used a 3-liter 6-cylinder engine, the new one uses a 2-liter 4-cylinder engine, much similar to the T5, but this one gets twin charging, which means that it is turbocharged and supercharged. The result is a power output of over 310 PS and 400 Newton meters. Moving on, you get the T8 plug-in hybrid, which uses the same twin-charged engine as the T6 but mates it to a 65 kilowatt electric motor which powers the rear wheels. And then you have the range-topping Polestar engineered T8. In the wake of cleaner emissions, Volvo is moving away from diesel engines, and that cleanup drive begins with the S60. All the petrol engines boast of CO2 emissions ranging between a low 48 to a decent 204 grams per kilometer. The one with the relatively higher CO2 emissions, as expected, is the T6 petrol, given its higher power output and the performance intent. Like I said, it puts out a little over 310 PS of power and 400 Newton meters of torque, which is good for a 0-200 sprint of 5.6 seconds, which is about a second quicker than the previous generation S60 and 0.2 seconds quicker than the 0-100 times of the new 3 Series 330i, the car that is in a way a benchmark in the sports sedan category. Though the T6 still leaves me all excited, in all likelihood Volvo may not bring it to India, at least not to begin with. We have a whiff that it's the T8 that the new S60 will begin its operations in India with, and that would make perfect sense. The hybrid propulsion ensures better driving range or fuel economy than an equivalent diesel, while at the same time being cleaner and greener. It's the S60 T8 that actually pushes the envelope further, more so with this particular car that I'm driving. This is engineered by Polestar, and you can tell by the sporty yellow seat belts on this thing. The system power is up over the regular T8. It puts out around 412 PS. And when the engine, which powers the front wheels, and the electric motor powering the rear wheels, when they put their power down in tandem, this car can accelerate from 0-100 kilometers an hour in 4.7 seconds, and the throttle response is simply amazing. The S60 T8 Polestar also gets all the top drawer equipment, like the brakes for example. They come from Brembo, 6-piston calipers up front, 4-piston calipers at the back. The front rotor is the ventilated type. You get 20-inch wheels shod with custom-made, tailor-made Pirelli P0 tires. And you have a suspension that has the Öhlins double flow rate dampers. These are mechanically adjustable for rebound should you decide to take this car to the track. There is no electrically adjustable suspension on the Polestar variant, simply because Polestar believes that electrically adjustable suspension is just not as responsive as they would have liked for a car of this category. And I would agree. Even compared to the air suspension on the S60 T6 or the regular T8, the Polestar setup felt more supple over imperfections in the road surface. And around bends, it has a noticeably lesser roll and pitch. Dial in the dynamic mode and it will also give you a near flat ride when you push the car hard around bends. It isn't as precise as an M3 or as manic as a C63 AMG. Instead, it's more comparable to the likes of the C43 AMG, but without a shouty design. It's quite a sleeper. I think the performance offered by the Polestar engineered variant is simply outstanding. The way it puts the power down with that electric all-wheel drive system, the way it performs, the way it handles, I think everything is just perfect for a sports sedan of this category. The only fly in the ointment for me is the sound. It just doesn't sound emotional enough. It just doesn't sound exciting enough. If this were to go up against something like the C43 AMG, it lacks that oral drama, and that's the only little grudge that I have with this car. But it makes up for the lack of the oral drama with its quick acceleration, fun dynamics and low emissions, which should make it a tempting deal if it's priced right. Now it remains to be seen if Volvo considers the Polestar variant for India when the S60 arrives into India by mid-2019. That said, the regular T8 is quite a package too, given its styling, safety quotient and radar-guided assistance systems, and it has the potential to make some waves in the mid-size luxury sedan segment. And to answer the question that we began with, yes, the new S60 is very exciting to drive. The new T6 pushes the envelope further and it's a serious contender in the sports sedan space. But surprisingly, the T8 with its hybrid propulsion is even better, quicker and more involving to drive. And it certainly needs your attention if you're shopping in this space.